One. Hello, my name is Dr. Richard Bernardo. I am the editor-in-chief of the Scope Journal for Leadership and Instruction, and I'm very pleased to be. I'm also wearing my Scope green shirt today, purposefully, so that people could recognize what that's about, because our journal masthead is green, in case you didn't know that. The purpose of this journal is to promote practical research, not only necessarily so specifically to education and leadership practices, as much as the title may imply that, but to anything we think that has any kind of value that any professional may want to use in any venue as such. And we usually get several, quite a few actually, submissions from around the country that speak to any number of different issues, and we go through the normal scholarly process to decide which articles we think we'll use in a given issue. And then what I do is take each of the authors, in this case, 3 authors, to comment toward the article. But as we were talking about before we got on, this is it's kind of freewheeling. There's no structure necessarily to necessarily narrow it to any one point. We'll just kind of go where the conversation takes us, especially about a topic like this. So very quickly, before I introduce the guests, they haven't seen what anyone else has seen on this, and that's their journal article. All right. I thought they would be proud to see that.
Looks great.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's the first.
Great. Thank you.
My pleasure. So it's the first article in our issue, which is coming out maybe by the time I finish this sentence. That's how imminent it's about to come out. I'm pleased to introduce 3 individuals, professionals, and friends with whom I've worked in different capacities over the years, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Don, you want to start?
Yeah, Dr. Don Heberer. I am District Administrator for Instructional Technology on a school district Long Island for K-12, and I'm also a coordinator of educational programs at Stony Brook University, the Teaching and Learning with Technology program. Been doing that for a number of years, actually along with Dr. Pisano, which I'm sure he'll mention in a second.
Okay, Craig?
Thank you, Dr. Bernardo, and I'm happy to say I'm wearing green as well in honor of Scope Education Services. And of course, I can speak for all the authors in saying that we appreciate this opportunity. My name is Dr. Craig Markson, and I'm the director of the Education and Leadership Program at Stony Brook University.
Dr. Al?
Al Pisano. I did not get the green memo, but I think we'll be okay there. We are, just so you know, Rich, willing to sign any copies of the article if anyone would like that. We're all willing to sign those and get those out to the masses.
Small fee, though.
Yeah.
No,
I have multiple roles. One is Director of Teaching and Learning Technology at Stony Brook University. I work a lot in teaching, program dev, entrepreneurship, author, of course, with you, Dr. Bernardo, with the Collective Mindset. So I'm really looking forward to talking about this topic. I feel like so much has transpired already since the article was written, and even after it comes out, by the time folks read it, things will have transpired just in a few days to a few weeks. So,
Truer words were never spoken, Dr. Pisano. As such, the title of this article, I may not have left it up long enough for people to have seen it. And again, if you need to get the journal, you can contact us at Scope to obtain it if you don't get it through your normal channels. The title is "As Cited by the Artificial Intelligence of ChatGPT: Best Practices on Technology Integration in Higher Education." And as Al's alluded to, I think we got this article submitted somewhere in winter, in January, thereabouts, for us to consider for publication for the spring issue. And that's Fred Flintstone time when we come to talk more nearly about what this is about. And I already told them what question I was going to ask them straight away, and after that, we'll see which way the wind takes us. ChatGPT. I feel like Larry King right now. ChatGPT. Innovation du jour.
I mean, I think it might be too early to tell. It looks like it could be, the next big invention. The internet was a huge invention in the last 30 years, kind of a watershed moment for technology. This could be the next thing, if not bigger, or it could just be, to use your other phrase, it could just be old wine in new bottles. We don't know. I think it looks like it's going to be a big impact, but we're not really sure yet. I think we need to see how it's evolving.
I think that innovation word, we've had many discussions with and around that, Dr. Bernardo, and I think this is unique. A lot of innovations come out. They are great. They get adjusted. They evolve a little bit. They get adjusted again. I think this innovation is here to stay. I don't think it is the innovation du jour. I think it has got a lot of powerful aspects of it already, but the exponential evolution of this technology makes it not a static innovation, but one that's growing rapidly. And I'll share something that I saw actually on 60 Minutes. Sundar Pichai, who is with Google, CEO of Google, and he runs, obviously oversees Baird. He indicated in this 60 Minutes that basically they are not letting out to the public all the capabilities of Baird. They are gradually letting it out because of the power behind this technology, and more than hinted that people are not ready for this. So the evolution of this is far beyond, I think, what we can comprehend. So it's an innovation, but it's a very different innovation. It's an innovation that's learning and growing on its own, which is pretty unique.
Correct. I agree with my colleagues that this is something real, and it's as my colleagues have said, it's evolving, it's ongoing, and essentially we're going to have to really teach humans how to cooperatively learn with artificial intelligence. And the beauty of artificial intelligence is, unlike humans, it doesn't die. So it learns and it gets saved, and it becomes the collective wisdom of all of us, and it keeps evolving as well. Like, just think about the articles that we uploaded in the ChatGPT about best practices in technology integration in higher education. It is a memory, and that doesn't die. So it's learning as it goes too. And Al mentioned the 60 Minutes episode. I was watching an interview with Elon Musk, and he was talking about, and I think this was on, I don't remember, but it was basically, he was talking about a dialogue that he had with one of the founders of Google, and that he warned that we've created an intelligence which could potentially be at a higher level than human beings. And Larry Page of Google said, well, what are you, a speciesist? Which I didn't even know what the term was. I had to look it up. But essentially, a speciesist is a person that puts human beings above all other beings. And Elon Musk said that he looked at Larry Page and said, okay, I'm a speciesist. What does that make you? I mean, that's some of the dialogue that's happening here over this.
The word that Al used a moment ago is, all of you know that I'm about to use one of my favorite words, and that would be futuring, futurist. That's what we're doing right now. We are projecting and forecasting, and we are futuring as we move along. And an important word when we talk about futuring is exponential. And when something multiplies the way something like this multiplies, something like the way the population explosion happens, or even, I hate to bring up an unpleasant memory, but because we're still living it, is even COVID. The COVID spread was exponential because of how it began to explode in an uncontrolled, unpredictable kind of way. We know what that was about, and what we had to do to get our arms around some of it as such. So that exponential word is an important point. I should have mentioned early on, I don't want to forget to say this, is that for those of you who haven't read the article yet, and that would be most of you at this point, I urge you to read the article in the journal. And I urge you to consider whether you would like to submit something along those same lines. And in fact, I'll let one of the gentlemen speak about this, because they did something pretty unique with this particular article. They have a fourth author. Who would that be? You smiled smugly.
That would be ChatGPT. We basically had to list ChatGPT as a co-author because APA version 7 for citing, ChatGPT was so new that APA version 7 did not accommodate what to do if you're using ChatGPT. So in order to get around that, since there's no APA version 8, and I believe that's how we conclude the article, we said we had to list ChatGPT as a co-author because ChatGPT helped us write the article.
Right. And the thing that I think is interesting, right? So the whole point of APA is so you can retrieve, the article, the source material that the person is using. And you really can't with ChatGPT. You could pull it up on the same day, the same version, the same build. You can give them the same prompts that we had given, the keywords, everything else, and you're going to get a different result.
Mm-hmm.
So it almost doesn't. I don't know how APA would actually even, what the APA citation would even look like for that. I mean, would you have to even giving key, like there's no way to get the same results for everybody. You'd almost have to include what the prompt is and what it created in the transcript or something. Like there'd almost have to be, it almost messes it with APA in the format. It doesn't really follow the normal conventions of anything that we've ever experienced.
And I would say that mirrors education as a whole. If you think about APA, it's been around forever. It's kind of stuck in its ways. They come out with new versions every how many years? I don't know. And they're up against this quickly evolving technology. And like APA, higher ed, K-12, they're not sure. They're grappling with how to work with this. They're grappling with how to either say, we don't want this, or, hey, how do we embrace this? And even if we do embrace it, how do we, what do we do with it? So they're grappling with these things. So you have a really antiquated system, educational system, that's trying to figure out how to work with such a powerful technology at its base level, at this entry level, really now, the infancy of it. How do we work with that? And there's so many wonderful things that I know Craig and Don and Rich, we've talked about, sort of offline, but how does education deal with or cope with that?
Well, I think one way that whether it's ChatGPT or Bard should do is it should integrate with the ERIC database. So we're talking about educational research, right? We had to, as authors, as you know, we had to essentially download the different articles from the Stony Brook University Library system using the ERIC database. We had to do the different keyword searches. And then after we downloaded the articles, we'd have to sort of cherry pick different sections to feed into ChatGPT. I think that future forward, like the next Google Scholar or the next ChatGPT version of that, should integrate with the library databases, and in all areas, not just in education, but what about the medical profession? Can you imagine what that would look like? You would, it would really be the collective wisdom of us all, and you can use AI integrating with the whole library system to produce better informed decisions that impact policy across, again, many different fields. Dr. Bernardo, I think you're on mute. Yeah, we saw your message that it reminds us of the Borg, and I would agree, from Star Trek.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that is interesting, and so we did this on ChatGPT 3. They're up to 4, and Google Bard was not even out yet. I mean, there's a lot. These things are continuing evolving. Every other day, I hear of a different AI powered tool. I mean, I think one of the things we assert in the article is, technology is always disruptive in whatever sector it's in, whether it's education or the private sector, and things like the calculator were banned in schools when they first came out. Google was banned in schools when it first came out. And then now, after some time, we kind of realized, all right, well, then there's a place and time for those tools. With a calculator, you can get to higher level math that you couldn't do before, as long as you're showing your work and things like that. With Google, as long as you're citing things and doing research properly, you're able to kind of make sure that you're not using to cheat. You're using it as a tool in your arsenal, right? So I think AI is eventually going to be that for people. I know the knee-jerk reaction that we mentioned in our article at the time was New York City Department of Education banned ChatGPT. Since then, they've reversed that decision and now have realized that they need to kind of live with it rather than kind of ban it. But I think these technologies are really going to be something that we have to now educate our students, educate our society, educate our teachers, educate everyone on this stuff's out there and you need to learn how to use it properly.
So we are all of us are educators in different capacities across all of our combined careers. And all of us are very experienced, obviously, in training other folks to, in Alan and Don's case more specifically, but in Craig's and mine too, and probably a little bit of a different dimension, is training people to be effective educators. And now we're talking about retraining how we train educators to be both leaders. That's the part that kind of frightens me, to be quite frank. Both leaders and to be a kindergarten teacher. Not that I can see kindergarten children, at least not yet, using this, but maybe I'm just being.
Well, what's interesting, Dr. Bernardo, is that when a teacher is going through school, a teacher preparation program, so they're learning how to become a teacher, and they're about to do student teaching, etc. They want the the student teacher to know the Socratic method. But now I think to supplement the learning in the teacher's classroom, that teacher needs to teach his or her students the Socratic method, but with AI. To supplement the learning that goes on in the classroom, they're going to need to teach students cooperative learning with AI, the Socratic method with AI, as part of their project-based learning, their homework, etc. So it's really going to fundamentally change how we do things.
That's
you mentioned.
Excuse me, Don. That's massive, and I absolutely agree with you. That's a massive shift, and this word I overuse way too often, but it's a massive mindset shift that frightens me about the time it's going to take for us for that tipping point to happen.
Yeah, I think the scary thing for me, working in technology as many of us have for so long here, is it took a pandemic for people to really embrace and start leveraging technological tools effectively. What is it going to take for them to embrace this?
Well, I think one of the things that Craig mentioned in the shift is problem-based or project-based learning. I think that's really the key takeaway from this. When Google came out, we moved away from multiple choice, tests and things like that for take-home assignments and things like that, because we knew the kids were going to Google the answers. The students were going to Google the answers in K-12 and even higher ed. Now looking at having an essay assignment and having students just submit an essay assignment may also be just as antiquated. And now we have to move towards some type of project, and they need to maybe, like with math, you now have to explain, show your work to show you how you got to that answer. Well, maybe now we need to do that for our students when they're writing those essays. And why did you write this? Or what proof do you have that this is factual? Or what evidence do you show? And we need to take in real world problems and not just have them do an essay assignment or a written response, because there's no authenticity to that anymore.
Yeah, and humans still need to monitor it because the AI is not perfect. And I'll give you an example, and this is a plug to the Journal for Leadership and Instruction and Scope Education Services. So I ran through an article that I co-authored with Dr. Ken Foreman, and it was the Students with Disabilities and Suspension Rates, a cautionary tale for school districts. And I ran it through, and the response I got back, part of it was great, it also mentioned the limitations of the study, but then part of what it said was part of our results and findings was really part of the literature section. So not really findings in our study. So sometimes it gets it wrong, but then in other areas it gets it right. So it basically was critical of our article. And you know, you're wondering, how does it know all this? It was saying, well, your study didn't look at other forms of disciplinary actions within the school district. You only looked at suspension rates. Your study didn't look at why there was a strong correlation between suspension rates and students with disabilities. It didn't look at that. You know, your study only looked at one region of the country, and it's limited that way. And so AI could be pretty insightful there, and those criticisms were valid.
But to your point, I mean, even in our article, some of the summaries that ChatGPT did, it utilized the same language or the same speech pattern or sentence structure, you would say, over and over again. So you, like you're saying, there are areas where it gets things wrong or it is a little bit repetitive. But I would say that this is the genesis of this technology. This is the dial-up internet connection. This is the Atari. This is the record player of AI. And what is it going to look like in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? Is it going to be all those kinks, all those bugs, all those flaws? Are they going to be ironed out? Where it's going to be, like we've been saying, exponentially better.
I agree. I think it's going to be ironed out. It'll get better only with its interaction with humans. So as I'm interacting with the new AI that's Bard, it's asking me, what did I do wrong? And I'm telling it because I know that it'll learn and it'll be collective wisdom and it'll only help. It'll only better inform society. Yeah.
So ChatGPT at this point has about 100 million users. So if you think about the collective insight, and it does, if you use any of these tools, it comes up and you ask it to do something and says, is this what you wanted? If not, why isn't it what you wanted? So the collective wisdom of that, like who knows, like how quickly intelligent these things will become. And there is some semblance of intelligence because of the ability to collect all this data, put it together, learn from it, and grow and address the needs of humans, right? Of us as educators, of us as humans. So it's to think about the scope and scale of where this can go. Like we have to be like not just on pace, 10, 12, 30 steps ahead of it so that we could figure out how we could use this in education and leverage this in education.
Well, just to add to your point there, Al, I had a conversation with a colleague today, and he brought up a good point. Car companies, they have the 2023 model out, or maybe even 2024 model out, but they're designing the 2027, 2028 model. We're only seeing, what is ready for public consumption. So who knows what ChatGPT 8 and 9 and, Bard, 7 or whatever it's going to be look like. It's going to be, have all these other features based on the feedback that what we're all giving it now, like Craig's giving, I'm giving, you're giving. It's gonna. I think they're holding back so much of what it can do. I mean, right now they're doing it for free. I think a lot of this is so they can get that feedback. So when the paywall goes up and that product goes out into the wild as a full featured product, it's gonna be even more mind blowing for us.
I just thought of this. That's all of these points. So I don't know where to begin with. I wish we had these all in a package someplace. Happily, we are going to record this.
We should have ChatGPT take a transcript of our podcast. That's what we should have done.
We can still do that. All right. That might be interesting. But and I think the verb I'm going to use maybe tips me off as being just the old so-and-so among the four of us here. I'm pretty sure it will, but I'll say it anyway. The verb I'm going to use is how systematize. And what I think it was Donna said a moment ago too, that as we know, car models are really being designed as we speak out 6 or 7 years from now. The Chinese, I'm told, have already planning for a war with the United States in 2050, because that's how far out they see future compared to how we see future in our own specific American culture. We're much more short-term thinking than long. So if you went out 10 years and worked backwards, this is a tough question to answer on a the few minutes we have remaining to us here, but even if we talk about this, maybe in that book we talked about writing or someplace else, if we were out 10 years from now, presuming we know roughly at least what that would look like, how the system evolved to embed or weave through everything that we do from K through 16, all the way up through graduate school. How could we systematize it, or is systematize an inaccurate word? Does that verb really work with this? Or is it Al's word is organic? Go ahead.
I think
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Craig. You go first. Go.
No, I think it'll yes, you can systematize it. I don't know if you remember the book, The Wisdom of the Crowd.
Amen.
Well, here's a pitch for a new book. It's The Wisdom of the Crowd and ChatGPT. And then ChatGPT remembers. You see, the crowd doesn't. And it'll always constantly verify if the information of the crowd is correct. So in The Wisdom of the Crowd, so like the Navy, a team of naval experts, and I think this might be in the beginning of the book, or it's at some point in the book,
Yes.
tried to identify where the nuclear submarine thresher was. And the experts, with all their advanced data, couldn't pinpoint where it sunk. But when they opened it up to the entire Navy and they had everyone guess, you could be, an entry-level position in the Navy, or you could be an admiral, the crowd got it right. Or like, why is it on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire when there's the expert that they call up, or the crowd always gets it more right than the expert. Well, this is The Wisdom of the Crowd with artificial intelligence, which memorizes, which will remember, and also always re-verify it. So that would be a pitch for something, or maybe that's where this is going. Maybe that's how you systematize it, to your point, Dr. Bernardo.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that it can be systematized in the sense that we can control how this evolves as much as in the education setting. Listen, data is always there, ever present, like data about kids, data about progress, data about, how successful they are, assessments, all of that piece. But I think something like this can do, and if you think about like that 100 million just in ChatGPT, 100 million, you think about a full football stadium of like maybe 100,000, like at max with some of these soccer games. Like you think about how many people it is contributing to that collective wisdom. There's power in leveraging that to analyze how well students are doing, what can be done to improve instruction, improve learning. Those are the kind of things that would be highly beneficial to education. But I think in 10 years or less, we will not just be looking at this as a, hey, a yes, but this is a cool thing. There will be a dependency on this because of its power and that competitive advantage, whether that's an industry, in K-12 and higher ed, the competitive advantage it's already offering will be too much for anybody to not be a part of. And in 10 years, my goodness, if you're not with it and you're not harnessing the power of it, you're going to be left behind. I would even say in 3 years, 4 years, that you're going to start seeing that affect things majorly. And in education, especially, has an impact.
Does it tear? I'm sorry, go ahead, Don.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, it's creating a new digital divide, right? So, originally we had the haves versus the have-nots. Then we have the haves versus the have-betters, right? And now we're going to have the people with AI and without AI. So, I mean, if you're like to your point, if you're not on board, if you're not using this, if you're not leveraging these tools and working more efficiently or more accurately, or crunching the data that you have, leveraging these things, you're going to be left in the dust. And that's either as a student in the United States or on the global scale economy, or competitively, or as a nation. As there's just so many implications by not using it, that you're going to fall behind.
Does it tear down the four walls of our typical brick and mortar buildings, school buildings? Or should it? Is it about time that we even consider the possibility?
Well, I mean, I think this technology definitely begs the question if we need to reevaluate our educational system as a whole, whether it's from the assessment piece, whether it's from the instructional piece, whether it's from the social aspect piece, was the skills that we're teaching our students. But yeah, I think in ways it could democratize some of the learning. But in the same sense, if we're all benefiting on the AI, and the AI is not necessarily providing, if it's controlled by an entity that only gives information that it wants us to hear, in some ways it could not democratize it, it could authoritate it. So I think we
Well,
need to be a little careful.
Wow.
yeah, I agree. And maybe that might be, if we're talking countries now. I know Dr. Bernardo mentioned China and whatnot before, but would an authoritarian regime be able to manage this better than a society which values freedom of speech, which has a democratic tradition, has a free market tradition? Which society will be able to manage AI better? It's
Wow.
not enough to have good coding. You could have the best computer scientists in the world, but if you don't open it up to promote the wisdom of the crowd with artificial intelligence and the freedom of the crowd. Remember, for the wisdom of the crowd to be able to work appropriately and make the best decision, the crowd had to be able to think independently, make a decision, and then something would have to monitor the collective decision.
But is the AI then just the summation of human knowledge now, because it has everything that's on the internet, can pull from every source that's out there? Is it the collective average or the summation of all human knowledge at this point?
Not though. If you look at things like what happened with when they matched up two AI technologies, they developed their own language. It shocked
That's
everybody.
interesting.
That's
Scary.
It's beyond the collective
Yeah.
wisdom. They're taking the collective wisdom, they're remembering it, as you said, Craig, and they're processing and learning from it in a way that we can't imagine as sole individuals with one brain. We can't imagine it. And it is very, it is Borg-like, if anybody's ever seen that. It's all these minds together working collectively, and the mind is not just for absorbing information. We actually generate thoughts, generate responses. Well, it's doing that based on all the information it's gathering and actually creating almost, we don't get crazy and say it's a sentient being, but it is its own intelligence in a way, because of its ability to learn and grow and evolve in a lot of ways out of our control. So how do we, like in education, how do we think about harnessing that? How do we think about leveraging that piece? And I think it's going to be through companies that take this, stuff and have like one lane that's really helpful for educators, really helpful for education. I think that's likely how it'll work in the educational space.
My head's spinning. I could see so many opportunities just to consider the ideas that have bounced down and among all of us right now. This is crazy. I'm not sure how much this is on topic. I don't remember the name of the book. I'll post it on the link when I find it. I know most of you know that there's an agency in the federal government called DARPA, DARPA. I don't remember exactly what it stands for, but it's a high-powered, for want of a better term, probably a term that's overused way too much, think tank, where so-called learned men, go back to what they say in The Wizard of Oz about people with degrees, so-called learned men sit around a table and kick around these kinds of things, and then they create projects to work on to see how they work out. They actually put grant money out to develop some of the crazy things that people do, or weapon systems and all sorts of things have evolved out of this DARPA think tank. What they do is they have a competition, and any one of us could join. Anyone who's listening to this could join. I forget what it's called, where they'll put up questions along the lines of what Craig was talking about earlier, where they'll say, in 3 years, what will be the corn production in Thailand? I'm making it up. I don't even know if Thailand grows corn, but those are the kind. And then what people will do is they'll compete to see whether they can use the information that they have from whatever sources they have to make forecasts that come from the average populace. Somewhere in here, there's some sort of, I think the science word, biological word is mesentery. It's the membrane that connects all of the organs and keeps them together. where they somehow communicate with each other. There's a mesentery of something that this is suggestive of that frightens me. I'm going to skip to one more point that's not as relevant, not totally irrelevant to what I just said. I'm very skilled at developing curriculum. You tie my hands behind my back, I can write a curriculum in a half hour about anything. Just tell me what it's about and I'll do it. But the way I always approached was always break down the skill sets to see how they evolve from kindergarten to next grade to next, or sometimes backward, see how they're going to mesh. I don't see how you can do that with this. I don't see how you can say, well, an eighth grader can only should be able to do this with a GPT process versus what a 12th grader couldn't use versus what a third grader. This is a grenade. And grenade is probably too calm a word to come to think of it. I'm talking too much.
I imagine you could ask ChatGPT or Baird how they feel they could integrate ChatGPT into the curricula, K through 12, and it would probably give you a pretty good answer.
You definitely can. I did a professional development session in my school district maybe 2-3 months ago. Yeah, it was like March, and we did we asked ChatGPT to write a PD with slides on ChatGPT for educators. And we did the entire PD. We started the whole PD. We followed the slides exactly. And at the end, we did a plot twist and told the people that this entire presentation was written by the AI we were telling them about. And it does the whole thing. It can give you lesson plans. It can give you curriculum breakdowns. I haven't tried it, but I bet you if you can put that in there, like Al said, and say, what skills could a first grader use ChatGPT for? Second grader, third grader, all the way up, and it would give you lesson plans. I mean, you might have to tweak them a little bit, but it does that already.
Well, and then even beyond education. So, everyone's afraid of the biases that maybe a computer has, but the point that I've been hearing in the medical profession is that the AI in a lot of instances does not have biases. So, for example, a heart attack in a woman is one of the most misdiagnosed things. And some of that has to do with, and pardon me for saying this, but it's still the reality that there are more male doctors than female doctors right now, okay? So a male doctor might see a female patient and misdiagnose that patient and say, okay, you're having a panic attack, and send them home. But a heart attack is a serious thing. If you go into an emergency room and they even think you're having a heart attack, they rush you right into the hospital room, okay? But AI will ask all the appropriate questions and go through the checklist without the biases and diagnose it more effectively than a doctor typically does. So, I mean, a way to play around with it, and you're going to laugh at the story, and this is a true story. Have you heard of the Akinator app? It's on, I better say it quietly because
great. It's 20 questions basically. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so like
Akinator,
you can, it's what is it? It's with Alexa. I better say it quietly because Alexa might answer me in the room. But anyway, so if you could say like Alexa will say, "I'll read you mine." You pick something that you're thinking of. Like let's say in this case, I picked a world leader. I picked Kim Jong-un of North Korea. So the Akinator app asked, and this was at a New Year's Eve party. Asked us a whole series of questions about, is the person this, is it a world leader, is it a male, this and that, and then the last question it asked us was, is this person a Disney character? We said no, and then all of a sudden it says, you're thinking of Kim Jong-un. I mean, it's just funny that was the last question that it asked. I mean, it asked, is the person Asian? Is the person this, that?
That's a trick question. Right within 10 questions because there are some similarities there. So, Rich, I know we have to finish up here. You want to bring us home? Yeah.
I don't want to finish it up. I don't want to do that. I do. And we have to bring you folks back to have some more fun with this up there, or maybe bring some more people in. But here's my question. And it's not a great question. Here it comes. On a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 meaning not at all or very, very unlikely, to 5 meaning it's a metaphysical certainty. How certain, how confident, and that word has loaded meaning, I know. How confident are you that ChatGPT will be a plus for learners and educators 10 years from now? You don't have to explain it. Just give me the number. We'll go from that.
All right. So I think it will be a plus if we change how we view certain aspects of education.
Amen.
But if we don't, it will be a detriment. If
I'm
we don't
not
adapt.
Alan Craig answer the question. No, I'm teasing. That's a great answer. Thank you, Don. Gentlemen,
What did you say? I'm sorry, 5 was the best, 1 being.
yes. Most
I'm gonna
comfortable.
give it. I'm gonna give it a 5, but I'm gonna describe it the way someone described the internet in the beginning, and that is, it's gonna be the best and worst of everything. So there'll be diabolical interactions with AI, as there'll be a lot of positive benefits, such as properly diagnosing a patient, let's say, that needs to go right into the emergency room.
So I'm gonna go with a math, computer science answer, and you know, I think, like Don said, it is up to us to see how positive or negative it could be. So I'm going to go with, instead of a number, I'm going to go with pi. I'll go with so based on what pi is, and you know, the never-ending nature of it, I'm going to go with pi on that one. And I think one thing I'm sure of, as I mentioned before, it is going to go from, hey, this is a fun little thing to try, to an essential piece of technology in the future. There's zero doubt in my mind how impactful this is going to be on society, on education, and to Don and Craig's points and your points, Rich, I think it's up to us, you know, how much we stay ahead of it, how much we embrace it, and how much we can leverage it for good. It's really up to us. I'm going with pi.
Okay. All great answers. There's a dissertation in there's articles in these conversations. Those of you who really want to build on this conversation today, we invite you to check with me, come back to me. I'm on the website. The link will be up when it's posted, as all of this is posted, to pursue some of these premises we're talking about. A phrase that I meant to use earlier in the conversation today, I had shared with the gentleman, was often, in this case for sure, practice precedes research. These fellows were way out in front of this. They were offering points of view with the research that they had, fully understanding that the research was going to be an avalanche after they came out with what they said, and we all know that that's exactly what's happening. In this case, the more we can get this kind of conversation going, maybe we can come up with. I'm not sure why I'm using this word too much today. We can come up with a system to make this something that's of great benefit to all of what humanity is supposed to be about, to fulfill themselves. I can't thank you men enough. All right, I knew this would be a good one. And I could have closed my eyes and kept my mouth shut for the whole hour. We did not expect to go this long, but I'm stopping it now. And I have my full appreciation and respect and regard for each of you, as you already both all knew. So take care.
We appreciate the Journal for Leadership and Instruction and Scope Education Services, and you as the editor-in-chief. We appreciate what you do for the education community. So thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it.